Her is the newest film by Spike Jonze, the director who has done Adaptation, Being John Malkovich, Where the Wild Things Are.
None of which I've seen.
Well, there you go. This is why you waste your life, Daniel.
I didn't have a life up until now, apparently.
You didn't.
Yeah.
It stars Joaquin Phoenix and Amy Adams, and
Who I also never could pronounce until now.
Joaquin?
Yeah, Joaquin.
Joaquin.
Joaquin, exactly.
I always thought that's how you had to say his name. And then the voice of Scarlett Johansson as Samantha.
We just hear her. We don't actually see her.
It's true. The basic plot synopsis is something that could be laughed at if you just said some guy falls in love with his operating system. That is ostensibly what it's about. But deeper than that, I think it's exploring relationships as well as Theodore, the character that Joaquin Phoenix plays, trying to figure out maybe the relationship between technology and humanity at the same time. That is basically what the movie is about. Here's my thoughts on the film, very briefly. I think there's a lot of technical aspects of this film that are top-notch. Spike Jonze has always been one of my favorite modern-day filmmakers, and he doesn't disappoint me in this. He has this really interesting muted palette that he uses this time, with almost like pastel colors that infuse the movie. And if I was someone who really prescribed a lot to color theory, I'm sure there's a lot that we could talk about with that. But these pastel colors do bring this almost like storybook nature to the film that highlights Joaquin Phoenix's like progression through kind of living somebody else's story and becoming his own self. Just look at me being an English nerd with this. I know. There is great performances here. Joaquin Phoenix, I think, was robbed of not getting nominated for an Oscar, at least getting nominated for Best Actor in a Lead Role, because he did some of his finest work. In fact, Joaquin Phoenix really is the person to get snubbed at the Academy here the last few years, because his last few performances are something that should have been recognized and really haven't been. What's interesting to know is that Scarlett Johansson actually came into this movie much later. She is not the original voice who was playing just off screen of Joaquin Phoenix. And if I did my research better, I would tell you who that other actress was, but I can't remember. It cast out later on.
Mystery.
Then we also have the indie darlings of Arcade Fire, Owen Pallett, Karen O are also doing some of the soundtrack here. And Spike Jonze has always had great soundtracks to his films as well. Very similar to Tarantino, where there's always a song that comes out of these movies where like, I need to listen to that again right now. And it kind of just adds to the mood of the movie. So there's those kind of like technical aspects that I really liked. The other aspect that I've been saying all over the place, there's a review that I wrote, I've done another video on it on my other main channel, is just how much stuff you could talk about coming out of this movie. The philosophy that you could talk about, the themes that it brings up. I just think this is an all-around great film that I will definitely be revisiting at some point in the future. But Daniel, what did you think?
Really, before I talk, tell us really quickly about that one point you want to bring across.
Well, specifically, there is this phrase that's used in the film, which is the past is just a story that we tell ourselves. And I really resonated with that phrase because, well, we're going to probably debate this here in just a second. To me, that really felt like what he was saying was, at a certain point, we have to stop beating ourselves up about what we've done in the past, and we have to just move on from it. We can't just be living our lives through, like, I did this in the past. This is what's been terrible in the past. We have to kind of say, okay, that was the past, and this is the future that we have to focus on. And I really liked how they kind of explored that theme in the movie.
Right. Well, for me, I agree. This is a movie for the ages. I think it's one of those ones that
All the ages.
All the ages.
Take your mother and go and see it. It's going to be fine.
No,
Don't do that.
For the ages, in that I think looking back 50 years from now, we'll look at one of those, like a 2001 film, a Blade Runner film. I was like, yeah, that said something about the age and predicted something about the next age.
Definitely both other science fiction films, which this one really is, yes.
For me, though, it was an intensely personal film. It was a challenge to approach it as a review when I wrote my review for it, because there were so many things in there that really resonated in part of my life. For example, Theodore, the main character, has a very solid relationship with another female who he's not really romantically tied with. And I've had that many times in my life. And then he also has a relationship that, in this case, is romantic, that he was very, very close with. They grew up together. I'm talking about his wife in the film, whose name is Kathy. They grew up together. They influence each other. They become entwined as personalities. And now he's really struggling to relate to her and is almost this long distance relationship that he's maybe trying to keep together, maybe not. And that's something that I'm experiencing myself right now. So there are very many moments in that film I'm just like, it hit me right here on there. So it's a bit of a challenge to review because of that, but it also speaks to the power of it on there. And I think that in the movie, you have Samantha, this OS voice on here, who is technology and is very much technology on here. This is not a human, but it's very easy for Theodore to fall in love with her. And part of it sounds cliche. Oh, falls in love with a machine because it's easier to fall in love with. But you watch the movie and no, she's a person, but she's still a machine in the end. And I think the point of the movie that I took away from it is that human relationships are messy, but there's something very different about them than the digital relationships. An example, and I don't want to, when I try and put it this way, it's like it's hard because it comes across as abrasive, but if you were to look at it this way, Sam is not real. Samantha's not real on there. And it almost like a sophisticated form of porno in the sense that porn is not real sex. Porn is idealized, right, and is not real on there. But a lot of people find themselves stuck in it, and because of it, forsake the reality of a real relationship on there.
Yeah, I'll show you some clips before you go home.
Okay, but that's, I guess, where we start to debate these. So tell me a little more about what...
Well, that specifically I want to pick up on because what I like what it investigates is I don't feel like this movie is set like 80 years in the future. This is set maybe even like just 20 years in the future.
Absolutely.
There will come a time where our artificial intelligence will feel very much like just intelligence to us.
Right.
Where they call it the singularity in science fiction and in scientific circles, where it's going to be this machine is basically as close to human as we can make it, human thought patterns, that sort of thing. And when that happens, what that brings out in us is that if our technology, the ones that we're using here right now, are able to just see the data that we're giving to it, the pictures that we're taking, the web searches that we're doing, the notes that we're keeping for ourselves, they're not only taking in that information, but they're understanding that information. And then that becomes into a whole, another kettle of fish, because they can start not only just recommending even more in-tune stuff than what we need, but they're not judging us for that as well. So that is why I think that there's that relationship that is built with them, because even though she has free reign of his digital life and really his real life, she doesn't care about that. She is able to accept him no matter what it is. You could go in and talk about like the God parallels that we have there, that he loves, she loves us, or him.
Yeah.
No matter what he actually does.
Right.
And there's that kind of interesting
I've seen reviews that analyze that. So one thing that I find interesting, because it's a little bit different than your perspective on it, is that you can tell he has a beautiful relationship with his wife, or had one, and that they were so closely entwined on there. And he's very reluctant to let that go at the beginning of the movie. He says it took him 3 months to sign the T on the divorce papers. But Samantha kind of encourages it, in the sense that because he develops this relationship with Samantha, this fake person that's very real, that's what it ends up pushing him to actually meet down, sit with her, and sign those papers on there. Was that a good thing, or was that a bad thing? I think that in the end, because, spoiler alert, but in the end, he ends up, Samantha goes away, and he ends up having to have a real relationship with his friend Amy again. And the point of the movie is that the past and these relationships that you have with people are worth clinging on to, even though it takes work.
Yeah.
You say that you were fascinated by the fact that stories, your past is the story you tell yourself.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Well, the thing for me that really ties into is that when we live so much in our heads, and I can just use myself as an example, you can a lot of times be like just walking down the street and being like, oh, remember that stupid thing I did when I was in 5th grade? Why did I do that? That's so dumb that I did that. It's like I can think of previous relationships, or I can think of previous interactions I've had with people, and just obsess over that for so long. But at a certain point, we have to decide, no, like that is the past, and I have to move on. I can accept the past. I can say that yes, that did happen, but that no longer defines who I am. And I think that speaks not only to my own personal life, but also to a lot of people's lives who have had massive trauma in their lives, or had to live through a catastrophe. At a certain point, you have to say, I'm either going to let the past define me now and never get out of that, or I have to move on.
Right. Where I guess, and you're right in the fact that Samantha, the good thing that she does to Theodore is pushes him to move on.
Yes.
But at the same time, those experiences that define you, the mistakes that you make, those people that you've been with, they've defined you.
Yeah.
And if you're going to pull those out of the rug out of your bottom, well, maybe you won't actually have anything to stand on, because that is who you are, and you have to deal with that on there. Point is, I think that this movie explores these issues. It explores modern issues. It's a modern film. There's a very emotional film in that it resonates with different people in different ways on there.
Yeah.
But it's a film that I think we have to watch. And the issues that we're going to deal with in this film are going to go with us going forward, and even more so.
It does not explore how to pronounce issues, though.
That's for our next video.
That's for next time. Thank you so much for watching. If you clicked on this 10-minute video, I am so proud of you. But why did you do that? Thank you so much. On the screen, we're going to have social media stuff for Daniel. There's social media stuff here for me, Kyle. I do a weekly podcast with another gentleman named Grant called Whatever This Is, which you can find a link down in the description below. Daniel, thanks so much. Before we land off here today, you are definitely recommending it to people. I am definitely doing it a very high recommend. It is my second favorite movie of 2013. Definitely do not go thinking that this is going to be like either a laugh riot or like super heavy duty action. This is a very introspective, cerebral type movie. If those movies do not interest you, do not go see this movie.
But then why are you watching this? Because it has neither of that.
I haven't seen this movie, maybe I'll watch these two jagoffs talk about it for a little bit. Anyways, until next time.